much about teaching.
I'm sorry?
Well, the administrations aren't
We're live?
teaching, that's
Yes.
for sure.
Okay.
Now, after
Is,
last year,
are we
when
muted?
that bus incident happened,
We're live.
I think it was like October. Was it last year or the year before? Was it October when all the buses got stuck on the highway? That bad one. Ever since then, because her school was involved in that, so ever since then, they've been conservative on their calls of just being like, yeah, you can just do what you want, you know.
Okay.
And now with the virtual thing, they figured out they can do that.
It's
They
easy.
don't have to take a day
It'll be
off.
Frank, right?
Yeah. Hey, Frank.
Hey, good morning, Frank.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
Good. Who's that?
It's Tom Stout.
Oh, hi, Tom. Are we ready? You want to go? You want to wait?
Well, we have 9:30 here, so I think we're in good stead time-wise.
Good. All right, then. Welcome, everybody, to the January Finance Committee meeting. Sylvette, is there any public comment?
No, sir, we do not have public comment.
No public comment. Check. We have some action items required. Approval of the November meeting minutes is the first thing to do. Do I have a motion to do that? Mike?
Second. So moved.
Mike and Glenn, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Correct.
Todd, you gonna present financial statements?
Sure, Frank.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New
First
Year.
meeting of the year. And we're going to go through our financials for actually December, even though we didn't do November, but December is obviously the most relevant at this point. Always start off with the traffic. We always talk about the throughput and what traffic does. So we ended the year at 752,000. That is a significant increase, 92.5% higher than last year, obviously. But if you go back to 19, we were 18% below that number for the year. But we were 9% higher than 2017. And that's really important because we based our budget on 2017. And it's interesting when we looked at some of the comparative data, our traffic is down 18%, but nationwide traffic is down 33%. So had we been at 33%, that 2017 projection would have been somewhat aggressive. This is for the month of December. Again, I'll go through the year to date, but this is the most relevant. And this is our preliminary close. Obviously, there's some additional stuff we do for year end that will change the numbers. It won't change them materially, but certainly some things that take a little bit more time that we do in preparation for our audit. But you can see we budgeted a pretty significant loss for December, 925,000. We actually came in positive 456K. So when you think about that, and a lot of that, when we did and this is based on our August budget, what we did is we kind of said, let's kind of get a running start going into 2022. So we had a lot of positions in there that we said, hey, if we get the right person, we'll take them now. But obviously, like everybody else, we're slowly getting these folks here. But that's obviously working to the bottom line, at least in the short term. So again, always be nice to be better than budget, and especially when we have positive numbers without CARES. We didn't use any CARES in November or December, and you can see for December we had a positive net income without CARES. Parking, obviously, one of our lifebloods was up. Aviation services, those two have really been leading the charge for this year for us. And again, the expenses, as I mentioned a little earlier, is really because we've kind of said, hey, we got all these positions that we want to add, and it's just taking a little bit longer than we thought, which we kind of anticipated. But our budget again was one of integrity, where we had the positions there, and they just didn't materialize yet. But that kind of rolled us into 2022. Oops. I went the wrong way. No wonder they don't let me use this thing too often. Anyway, net income for the year, you can see that number is a pretty nice number, 5.6 number. That's obviously includes CARES. As you remember, our August budget was 2.4, which is a little bit more reasonable. If anybody remembers our original budget of $68,000, so we've come a long way with our amendments and some of the changes we made through the year, and ending the year on a pretty positive note. Overall net income positive 2.1 or 2.2 without CARES. And that's really the number that I try to focus on, because that really is going to be our long-term self-sufficiency, because CARES is only going to last for so long. Again, what I talked about with the expenses and aviation services and parking as well. You
Todd,
see our top centers, again,
I think you have a question.
Todd,
Yes.
I have a question. How does that bottom line compare to 2019's bottom line?
That's a slide coming up. I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. Okay?
Good, thank you.
All right, but great question. All right, profit centers here, you can see, and sometimes we call them cost centers, but they're really profit centers. They're supposed to make a profit or at least break even. Parking, as I said, and aviation services have been leading the charge. But you can see down there, terminal airfield, and then you see what happens to our number all the way at the bottom with that care support. So that represents the biggest piece of that overall net income is the CARES Act support, which is almost $3.5 million. Kind of tapping into the question that we just had, how does this year compare to other years? So if you remember, the first quarter was awful. First quarter of 2021, and as you remember, we had a relatively mild winter. So it could have even been worse. But you can see for the first quarter, we had $676K for the first quarter. This is just operating income. But you can see that the average, including that 776, was 1.6. Without it, it's almost 1.8. So you can see how bad it is. Then you go from April to December, where things really picked up for us, and they picked up in a hurry. And you can see kind of what I was mentioning earlier, that versus 2019, we actually did better from April to December on an operational basis. And then year to date, you can see we ended up operationally 7.8 versus 2019, which is 8.2. And our cash flow, again, we always monitor our cash, trying to stay above 60 days with a lot of our contingencies. And the things in yellow are the things that are highlighted. Those are the items that have changed from what we did in last month that was out on Novus. But most of that is really timing of our capital and some of our bridge stuff, and just the timing of when we think we're going to draw some of those funds. Again, on the capital, you see those are the numbers that really have changed. And I think at the bottom, I think this, you can't really see it there, but here, I don't know if you can lower that part on the bottom there.
The bar.
The bar.
Yeah, I don't know if that minimizes.
Yeah, there you go, that's good enough. You can see that, we get a little light in that second quarter, actually the other way so they can see the bottom. There you go. We're getting this here. Okay. All right. Second quarter is at 63 days. We get a little light, and then we're around 80 toward the end of the year. So again, that's on our new kind of cost per year, per day of 59,000. Slightly lower than it was actually in, I believe it was 20 was 60,000. So slightly below that, but again, that's based on the new numbers. At this point, I'll open it up for questions. Again, all things considered, considering what other airports are going through, we're very fortunate to be presenting financials in this particular way at this point. Any questions?
Hi, Larry Himberger. Had one quick question.
Sure.
I see aviation services and parking seem to be the backbone, as it has been for a number of years. What are we doing, anything, to promote the services at Hangar 7 or in the parking lot? Do we have a frequent parking program or anything, or is...
I'll answer the parking question. We do have Aero Club, we do have some programs there, and we're always looking to make improvements in the parking area. I mean, we've actually just added new equipment last year. Some things that we didn't have before. We didn't have some of the payless apps and some of those things. We've added some pay-on-foot machines. So we're trying to improve our parking services. We've done a lot. We have the electric charging stations out there. So there's a lot of amenities that have been added in the last year or so. And Darren can talk about a little bit about hangars and what we do to attract some of that business.
Sure, thanks, Todd. So yeah, Larry, I mean, we do some general advertising for the FBO as well. We have separate web pages for Hangar 7 and as well as Braden and Queen City. We, have some social media accounts dedicated just to Hangar 7. So using those all the time. We have been over the years building up an email list for that as well. So we do some email blasts out, with different things. We run promotions at Hangar 7 throughout the year. Usually about 3 or 4 times a year, we'll do some promotions with our World Fuel rewards points and things like that. So just a combination of things. And then, of course, as we're able to, back out at the General Aviation conferences and things too. So the Schedulers and Dispatchers Conference all the time. That hopefully is going to happen in April. The MBAA conference in October, November timeframe, and then maybe the regional conference in the summer as well. So.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Okay. How about a motion to accept the financial statements, please?
So moved.
That's Glenn.
Second.
Second, Larry.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor of accepting?
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Todd, we want to approve the lease line of credit from Univest.
Well, these are actually to move forward with these proposals. We haven't gotten the one on the BMO is an agreement that we're going to move forward on. The one with Univest is just to move forward. We haven't gotten a formal agreement from them yet. This is just their proposal. But, just to keep in mind, the terms on this one, and you know what, Savette, can you pull up the other one first? The BMO one, I know she has them in the other order. You'll kind of get a feel for what's going on because that's actually a lot easier because we already have an arrangement with them. So in 2017, we had a master lease agreement for $4 million, and this is just kind of extending it. And this is tax exempt. We've had it reviewed by King Spry, and what happens is the timing of these things is just kind of like we haven't used it all. So we keep pushing it and pushing it. So we use pieces of it, keep pushing them, and it's such an attractive rate. It's tax exempt. We did a full RFP for this way back when, so we know we got a great rate on this. And this is just continuing an existing arrangement. So this one we kind of ready to rock and roll. The other one, so that we can talk about, we can approve them both at the same time if that makes sense. If you go back to the other one is more of a taxable 3.5, and the terms aren't as good. It's only $2 million. But one of the things that happened when we did the connector, Univest is one of the companies, one of the banks, should I say, that we reached out to that did not participate. And I think there's some remorse on the back end, and they're a big bank, and we have a lot of needs. And this is kind of their way with some of the new folks that we're dealing with to kind of get their big toe in there and just kind of establish a relationship with us. And I thought this might be an easy way because, again, we can't have enough of these because we only pay for what we use. So it's not like, hey, we have to use all $2 million of this, and this is a taxable one. So we're going to use the other one first. But if we get ourselves in a situation where we have to use some taxable stuff for some of our stuff, maybe on some of our parking stuff when we talk about revenue generating, those ones we might not be able to use the tax exempt. So just to have this and to kind of expand the relationship. I'm going to work on some of the terms. I've been working with them, but I just kind of wanted to bring them to us and kind of say, let's move forward. Once they give me the final terms, I'll bring it back to the board or committee again. But again, this is more of a, for lack of another term, olive branch to kind of start establishing a relationship. And we can't have enough relationships with banks in the valley because we got a lot of projects, a lot of needs, and I remember the days when nobody picked up the phone. So to have a relationship when they're reaching out to us because they want to have a relationship, I think it's something to kind of get our big toe in. So I was curious what John had to say about that, and before we move forward.
I can see they'd want to put a big toe in the water, but this is a bad deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, you got a point and a quarter in fees up front, which to me would be the first thing that should go.
Okay.
The interest rate is average. There's nothing spectacular. It's not a killer.
Yeah.
But they are loading fees on this, which would not be unusual if they're not expecting a lot of usage. They would put fees on because they want to try and get paid for the work that they do. But when I looked at this versus the other facility,
The other one, you mean?
there would be no reason at all to.
Right.
I mean, I would hesitate even signing this simply because of the upfront fees versus what we would get out of it.
Okay.
That to me is the crux of it, because they might want an olive branch, but this is an olive branch that's.
Not the greatest.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I'll continue to work with them on this, and I'll bring back. Again, this was kind of to move forward and keep having discussion with them.
Yep.
I understood it wasn't the greatest, but I wanted to keep us kind of posted, because this, as bad as this is, this wasn't their first one. So I've had 2 or 3 after this, so each time it's like, hey. So again, I appreciate the feedback. Any other feedback? So at this point, I think we move forward with the BMO, and again, the other one is just to kind of continue to have discussions, nothing formalized with them. The BMO one was truly formalized. This one was continued discussions with Univest.
Do we need a board motion for continued negotiations with you?
Probably
No,
not. This is, that's, yeah.
Okay, then I'd make a motion to table the Univest facility for further discussion upon completion of negotiations with the management team and for approval of the BMO facility.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Okay.
So let's go forth with that. Who wants to second John's motion then?
Second.
Mike Stershik, second. All in favor?
Again.
Aye.
Aye.
And then, regarding the Univest one, that only pay for what we need, I've heard that somewhere before. All right. Any new business? All right, hearing none, I'll move for adjournment,
So moved.
So moved.
right? Whoever those were, and we're adjourned. That was a record. I think that was a record Finance Committee meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Good
Thanks,
job,
Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
See you guys.
See ya. Okay. So next up, we have our business committee. I guess we're still okay to keep rolling here, depending on who we have on the line with us. I do see Justin there, so that's encouraging.
If
Okay.
Ryan talks fast, we're gonna beat the finance meeting, okay?
I like it.
But I can.
Looks like at this point, I don't know, Sylvette, does it seem like we have maybe we don't have a quorum at this point?
Justin, may I do a roll call, please?
Please do.
All right. James Irwin? Here. Jeff Matskin? Chris Worley? Tara Zirinsky? We do not have a quorum.
Okay. Let's see, I guess.
Actually,
If Matt
The only
wants
action to
With
take
Matt.
would be approval of meeting minutes, right?
correct.
Actually, with Matt
Matt,
here.
do you want to vote on that?
Hell yes.
There you go.
Okay. Then we should be okay.
When we do have a quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. All right, great.
All right, we're good.
Yep.
All right, so welcome to the January Business Committee meeting of the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. We already did the roll call. So Sylvette, was there any public comment?
We do not have any comments, sir.
Thank you. Since Matt's gonna jump in here, do I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, now we're gonna see how good Ryan is. So we'll start with the, discussion items for the capital projects update. Ryan, if you take the floor, please.
All right, thanks, Justin. All right, good morning, everybody. All right, so Savette, if you want to go through the slides, I'll run through some of the projects here. So not too many updates in terms of the runway, given what's going on outside right now with most of the phases being in the winter shutdown. But the one thing to note is some of the percentages we've actually changed or scaled back because you may recall we've talked a little bit about utilizing all of the grant funds as part of the construction. So a lot of the original scope of work for package one, for example, was complete, but some additional items that we're getting FAA to fund will be done as part of the project. So that's why it's actually scaled back to 89%, just as a point of clarification. But again, they're in winter shutdown for package one. Next slide.
Ryan, quick question on that. Are we done with runway shutdowns at this point, or do we have any ones coming up?
So we potentially have some coming up in March, which will be part of package 4.
Okay.
Which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, at this point, most of the other phases are in shutdown.
Okay.
Again, package 2, winter shutdown. They early January they finished the PAPI installation and the Vaisala runway temperature sensors, which are shown right there, which helps this time of year, for snow removal operations. Package 3, again, same thing, winter shutdown. So back in March, we'll get back to some of the dual runway closures for some of the additional paving, which I'll show here in a minute. So package 4, we're potentially going to have a winter shutdown, but what we're trying to do is continue the work on taxiway Echo North, really, which is outside of the safety area. It doesn't require the runway to be shut down. But they are potentially going to do some of the under drain, which is going to be for the new shoulder work that they might do, again, weather dependent. So if we're just chasing the weather, we'll have them shut down. But we are continuing to update the airlines as we go with the closures and timing and NOTAMs, which I should have a call later this afternoon to go through some of that as well. So again, here's kind of the overview that we've done before. So that pink red area is really what they're going to address come the springtime in March for the paving, kind of that midsection there. And then, as I mentioned, some of the under drain that they might be doing during the winter months if they can. So moving on to some of the other projects, the boarding bridge project, we actually completed all of the main components back in December. You may recall we talked a little bit about a Mare Bridge was shutting down operations and are potentially being bought by another owner. But at this point, all of the work that we needed done is complete. We've had some conversations with the solicitor in terms of what comes next if any maintenance or warranty issues come up. So that's really the only thing that we're going to be tracking, as well as just the final payments, which again is in our cash flow. But in terms of the project, that work has been done, which we're definitely very happy about. So just wanted to note that. And then in terms of the non-funded projects, this one as well, so you may have noticed out front, all the work's been complete. They had a PennDOT inspection. Really all that's left is come springtime, Conservation District coming in to make sure everything's been established and, growing the way it should. But we have also been working with the contractor and the signal timing for the intersection. We're having some issues coming into the airport with the arrow left turn in changing, as well as on the weekends, they actually had the left turn into the airport reduced to about 7 seconds, which on the weekend doesn't really work for us. We had them change that to what it is during the week at 22 seconds, something like that. So just a little update there, but again, that'll unless anyone has any questions moving forward or issues that come up that we'll keep a lookout for, again, from our, communication perspective, or really analyzing the impacts of the intersection, that's been complete, which is good to see. And then just the overall update, you can see here, updated some of the percentages, what we spent to date, really where we are, no major issues from what we're showing, and we'll talk about some of the GA projects here in a minute, and then obviously the connector we'll talk about at the ad hoc committee. But I think that was it on these, unless anyone has any questions on those projects.
All right.
Just a quick comment. Just a quick comment in terms of the YouTube channel that we have. Ryan did a real nice update on the Bridge Connector project. How long ago did that go out, Ryan? A couple weeks?
Believe so. Yeah, Colin would know that better than I would.
Yeah.
What was the
A
question?
couple weeks ago was the YouTube update on the Bridge Connector project that Ryan did?
Earlier this week.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't subscribe to the authority's YouTube channel, you want to do so. That was a nice update. You get a good idea visually of what's going on. So I would encourage everybody, if they don't already subscribe, to do so.
Great. No, great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Colin does a great job putting those together.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on the capital projects? All right, we'll move on to the discussion item for the general aviation update. And Ryan, I think that's you again.
Yep. Yeah, I'll get it started, and Colin and Darren might have some items to jump in later, but big thing is just going through some of the projects.
Okay.
So again, here's another one we've talked about before, the phase 2 removal of the tree obstructions. All that work's been complete. The additional area we talked about before that was required to be removed was removed, seeded just before the winter. So again, similar to the PennDOT intersection project, it's really coming back in the spring, confirming the applicable growth, and everything's been established for the closure of the ENS plans with the district. But again, been working with the city of Allentown, working with Mack Trucks in terms of what's been planted, and obviously if there's any tree growth issues in the spring, contractor will address those as well. But again, that's one we were excited to complete, but again, it's really just working through the closeout pieces there come springtime. So 1533 Rehab Design, we've talked a little bit about before as well. We're working through basically the 90% documents right now. The big thing to note is, I think I may have mentioned this in November, the FA grant application deadline was moved forward again. So April 11th is the grant deadline submission. So really working on the bid documents in terms of putting out this project to bid so we can get the grant application in on April 11th, and more to come with some of the discussions that we've had in terms of some of our bid documents and updates there at future committee meetings. But just so the committee's aware, that's really the schedule for this and what we're looking to push forward. And then I believe we may have touched on this back in November, but just as an update, the terminal apron pavement repairs down at Queen City were completed right before basically Christmas time and the holidays. You can see on the left, kind of the dark gray areas was what we had paved. Contractor went in, removed. There's a pretty big dip going into the hangar area, and then for those of you who've been down there, right in front of the terminal entrance and exit to the ramp and the fuel farm, anytime it rained, there'd be a pretty large puddle that was sitting there for quite some time. And this time of year, obviously with icing, isn't ideal, so we had them address that as well. So really what we're going to do this coming year, which we're evaluating as part of our airside paving that was in our capital budget, is additional crack sealing and seal coating for the apron as well as the T-hanger area to the north. Again, just to make the usable life of the pavement last a little bit longer and improve some safety for the tenants out there as well. And then moving on to Brayton Air Park, should be seeing something shortly if it isn't out already. I know we did another update with the help of Colin to get something out. But as you can see, there's actually been a lot of progress since our last meeting in November. Again, right before the holidays, had a pre-construction meeting with the township, PennDOT, and contractor, get them up and running right after the new year. Had a meeting with Conservation District, and you can see they basically started the site work, doing some of the grading, putting some of the stone area for the foundation piers, which they're supposed to start this week. We'll see how that works, maybe later this week, depending on how much snow we ended up getting. But it's good to see that moving forward. We'll continue to update the committee and really going through that. But otherwise, yeah, that's moving forward. Again, weather dependent based on where we are. So we're happy to see that move forward. And I believe, yeah, in terms of capital projects, that's all I had. I don't know if anyone has any questions, or I know Colin, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to touch upon quick.
No, nothing from me. GA today, the newsletter for General Aviation will be out in February with all the updates. That's it from mine.
Any other questions or comments from anybody on General Aviation? All right, we'll move on. Is there any new business? Hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn. I thought Frank was for sure going to jump in and try to make this last longer.
Good job.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Justin.
I will, these guys have set a high bar for timely movement through our agendas, and I'll try to clear that bar, but I think that we're gonna have a very good update from Colin on public and government relations. But I'm gonna call to order the meeting of the LNAA Executive Committee for January 22. I don't know, do we have a quorum in this case? I think we might be short as well. It's me and John.
And Mike Stershik.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Beth, do you want to do a roll call?
Sure. Matt Turk,
Here.
John Hayes,
Here.
Mike Stershik,
Here.
Terrence Rinsky. Yeah, we have a quorum.
Okay. And we are short a secretary at this point because of the departure of Mr. Dames from the board. We're going to, I believe the idea is that we're going to hang tight on filling that position until our reorganizational meeting in April. So I don't think we have any public comment, correct, Colette?
We do not, sir.
Great, we'll move straight on to action items then. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from November of 2021. They are in Novus. I'd take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thanks,
Second.
Mike.
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Also in Novus, you'll find those Florio Perucci invoices. I'd take a motion to approve the invoices for November and December 2021.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Invoices are approved. Colin, you want to take the floor and give us an update on our government relations work?
Sure. Thank you, Sylvette, and always a great pleasure to talk to the board about legislative affairs. Obviously, I handle the public relations part of it as well as community engagement. Happy to talk to anybody about those areas as well. But today for legislative affairs, what we want to do is give a brief overview on some of the things that have happened since our last one, which was October, November of last year, which we had some hanging chads out there in regards to the infrastructure bill and in regards to some of the other funding sources that we were looking at. One of the things we want to do is always message properly to our legislators. There's a lot of media coverage, there's a lot of talk about the aviation industry and what's going on, returns to traffic and airlines, So we want to be able to tell the legislators of our region where we stand. And right now, if you take a look at just benchmarking ABE versus peer airports, from January through December 25th of 2021, we had top recovery rate, both TSA throughput as well as scheduled seats. So that's a great messaging point for us when we talk about investing in the infrastructure of this project that's going on here at ABE and at other airports as well. One of the things that they'll always talk about, and we just want to make sure we keep our eye on, is the COVID timeline of daily new cases and where we rank as a state versus the U.S. And you can see by the graph here, that's the U.S. below and there's Pennsylvania. So there's the spike. The reason I bring that up is because if you go back to last year when we talked about traffic, and it was one of the areas in which the media picked up on, January and February, and Todd talked about the first quarter, were terrible. It was a slow start. It was, sort of that lull. And then from March on, it was just a straight uptick for the airport, including July during the summer travel months, 250,000 people coming through. So we might mirror that this year, just based off of the comfort, based off of people and how they feel about traveling during this period. We got through the holidays, which is a good bump, but as we talk and we look at the pandemic, it's still ongoing, but ABE, as I showed in the graph before, as a whole, has recovered rather well compared to other airports, and Todd brought that up when we look at the financial aspect of it. Early engagement. So already we've met with Governor Wolf's office, his Deputy Chief of Staff, Eric Haggerty, as well as the Intergovernmental Affairs Office. We have an upcoming meeting with the PennDOT Deputy Secretary, Jenny LaWurst, and the Bureau of Aviation Director, Anthony McCluskey, and we're working on our regional legislators as well. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be aggressive coming out of the gate here because there is funding to be had, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The guidance and the route and the map to get to that funding, still foggy, still unclear, but there have been already articles in the paper about the coffers having a lot of money for Governor Wolf in his last year in office. There's going to be some funding and opportunity, we believe, for the airport to go and try to supplement some of the projects and infrastructure with the priorities that we have here at the airport. So we'll start with the PennDOT Bureau of Aviation. In December of 2021, we put our capital budget requests in with the Bureau. So if we just want to rewind and look at the Bureau from last year, we got a $1.8 million funding for our terminal connector project. So that was what we connected on last year. This year we're going back for $3.2 million on the terminal connector project. We also added in the Queen City and Braden Air Park potential hangar development, some site work, also looking for some funding with that as well. The award timeline, summer of 2022. The odds of hitting on all, probably not. And the reason I bring that up is because if you remember back to my last presentation, we talked to the Bureau of Aviation Director, Anthony McCluskey, and he talked about his 40% hit that he took in the Bureau budget based off of the pandemic. So the question really becomes, will any of this federal money work its way down to help buffer that back up? That will come up, obviously, in conversation with PennDOT and see how that works. But this is where the priority lists are, and these were the capital budget requests that we put in for in December of 2021. RACP. So we talked a lot about it, and we're successful in getting a $2 million award for our connector project. How did we get there? 25 letters of support for the project throughout the region, which included, just to name a few, obviously our regional delegation, TSA, the airlines, Darren helped with that, North Anthony County Executive, Lehigh County Executive, the Planning Commission, LBEDC. I believe the comment was, we've received letters from everybody but the Easter Bunny for this project, which was great because you want the regional support for this project. So to get the $2 million award was certainly a success on top of the 2020 award of $1 million, so $3 million from the RACP program for the airport. It was great news, but we have more work to do. There's more opportunity to go out there and get some funding beyond the RACP. So we had to work with the governor's office, obviously DCED and our PA legislative leaders, and all of them realized the economic impact of the airport. They realized where we are, and we were able to share the message about the critical nature based off of our traffic. In 2017, we needed this, and we're already back to numbers of 2018. So it measures up. I talked about this the last time as well, which is the Airport Land Development Zone, the ALDIZ, and before it had not passed through any House or Senate of Pennsylvania, but it has passed through the PA Senate, supported by Senator Scavello, also Senator Brown, Senator Boscola. Really great opportunity here. Its current status, it's in the PA House Finance Committee for review. Timeline, we're probably looking at spring, around the budget time, something that'll be discussed during the budget discussions. But what changed in regards to this program is, and it's a $2,100 tax credit per net new job created for a maximum of 10 years. When you look at this, and Matt Turk brought this up, was the fact that it was Majestic. You look at the Majestic project that we have going on in regards to what they're trying to do on our land lease, is that we're able to utilize this and they're able to utilize this, and we support that through any of the projects that we have that go on airport property. The changes are it includes all public use airports in the Commonwealth. That was not part of the original when I spoke to you last year. That language was added in. And non-commercial airports is 50 acres. The commercial airport max of 300 acres was always there. So it's job creation. It's additional airport revenue. It's really an opportunity for the airport to utilize a program as well as with its partners in Majestic or anybody else in order to create that. So definitely a good sign. We'll keep you updated as it moves through the government process. Again, I wouldn't expect anything probably to my next update, which is a few months from now in regards to ALDIZ. The federal infrastructure bill signed in November 2021 included all the things I previously talked about. $25 billion in new general fund over the next 5 fiscal years for airports and ATC. The $15 billion for airport formula grants, airport ABE 3.5 for additional entitlement funds yearly, so an additional 3.5, but that goes through the AIP, which is for the critical infrastructure projects. So you look at the projects we have right now, the runway and the connector. Does the 3.5 all have to go to one project? Can it be split with projects? We're still waiting for guidance from the FAA and their representatives on how the funds can be allocated to what we have here at ABE. So that's some discussions going on. Again, I kind of talked about that. Lots of funding resources and potential funding, but still a little foggy on how this is all going to operate. There's also the $5 billion for new airport terminal redevelopment program. I have it in parentheses. That's not going to be the formula that you just get from the FAA. That's going to be a competitive program. Now, if you look at just the description and you look at the terminal connector project, a lot of boxes are checked. Certainly meets what we would want for that project, but it's competitive. And we're going to have to work through whoever the agency is that's going to be overseeing it. Obviously, the Department of Transportation hand it off to the FAA, and maybe the FAA is the group that's going to be the ones that are going to be the ones that are distributing that. So that's going to be the group that we're going to have to speak to try to get this funding. So the other piece to this is that Governor Wolf talked about $325 million of funding through the infrastructure bill that's coming to airports of Pennsylvania. Now, that is still being worked out on how that's going to operate. Who's going to be the ones, as we talked about, is it PennDOT? Is it going through the budget? How are we going to work through? So we had our meeting again with Governor Wolf's office. We're expecting a couple of months before we get some information on the proper way to go for that funding. And really, I think there again, opportunities are out there for us here in 2022, and we want to get off to an aggressive start by speaking to our legislators and obviously organizations that could oversee the distribution of that funding. Last two things I want to talk about quickly, the mask mandate being extended to March 18th of 2022, and I'll be sending out an email later today about TSA PreCheck open enrollment. It's very popular. I know a lot of people ask about it. That'll be starting February 21st through the 25th in the Aviator room, so I'll provide the links and the information to the board and the public later today. And I send these out a lot. They probably could be annoying, probably not as much lately because things have been quiet for the most part going into the latter part of the year and into early part of this year. On Approach is always a great way to stay in tune with any issues or media coverage of things going on. And they come through your email, so if you see On Approach, you'll know it's something related to the airport authority. Anybody have any questions that I can answer? Karen.
Tried to unmute. Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yep.
sorry. So of that $25 billion from the federal infrastructure bill, you had two numbers up there. One was $15 billion, and one was $5 billion.
Correct.
what do you think that the airport could get out of those formulas? Or
Well-
the one that doesn't have a formula?
So,
Like, what are
so,
you-
yeah, so the 3.5 is already allocated, so that's there. So that's for the next 5 years, that's an additional 3.5, but that is restricted to the AIP. So that has to go to those infrastructure projects. That's why I brought up the runway and I brought up the terminal connector project in regards to, can that money be used specifically for, does it have to be used specifically for one project, which we don't dictate? Obviously, that comes through the higher guidance of the FAA and the DOT. But, you know, could it be split? So that 3.5 is set. That's 3.5.
I have that.
That is formula related. That goes to the airport already. So that's already been figured out through the AIP. Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Okay, the $5 billion, which is the terminal improvement program, that's going to be, again, a competitive process where we're going to have to, you know, for better chance, speak to our FAA representatives and really, you know, show our project as a necessary project for the airport, for its operation. But I showed you the description in there, and if you read through that description, it checks a lot of the boxes that is supposed to, you know, meet. So if you're asking me to predict what, I think it's a great project. I think we have a great relationship with the FAA. I think we have federal leaders here in this region. Senator Casey was just here last year. He knows the value of this project. Congresswoman Wild, same thing. Senator Toomey, same thing. We've been speaking to them about this project. The difficult part is, in the past, you know, finding funding avenues, you know, you got to be creative sometimes. This one here specifically with the infrastructure bill, because it's so defined, in the airport realm and in a terminal improvement, you might be hitting this at the right time simply because of where the infrastructure bill landed and what they're trying to put out there. So we're still waiting for guidance on it because they're still figuring out from the DOT who is going to be the one overseeing it. Is it going to be the FAA? You know, it's going to be, so that still has to be ironed out. Now Ryan, if you want to speak on behalf of this as well, it's going to be some time here where we need to remain engaged. And I know that Tom and Ryan have already met with the FAA. I've been having discussions with them. So it's just staying engaged, knowing the money is out there, and then, you know, again, making the best case for it. And I think if you look at that description, I think ours checks many of those boxes. So, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
But you're not anticipating a certain amount or hoping, like you're not projecting that you think that we might get a certain amount.
No, because I think internally, I mean, and Ryan, if you want to jump in on this, I think you have to look at the overall budget, what's left and what we can try to do, obviously, to, if there's a match, if it's 90%, you know, there's a lot of different things that can be thrown in there where we have to be cognizant about not asking for too much and really just asking for what we need at this point in regards to this project.
We feel pretty good about it because we were, you know, top recovery.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of great things going on, right? So
I agree.
For 2022. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Ryan, Colin, the question that I would ask is how, you know, broad question. I think I asked this last time, and maybe the answer hasn't changed, but the question is always, what can we as governors do to help with any of this? If there are conversations that we can have, if there are whatever we can do to advance the ball with in terms of your work in government relations.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, this is going to be a year where that's going to be important because the more voices, as you saw in regards to the RACP, you know, there's a certain level of and, you know, I was speaking to somebody in Senator Brown's office, there's a certain number of letters of support that you get, and you blew past it. So the more voices that you can have and the more that you can have people championing a project. And again, I think this is an opportunity where there's a lot of different funding resources and a lot of connections from our board to the community, to the leadership within the, you know, whether it be federal, state, or local, where it's going to be important as we learn more about specific funding sources we're going after and the timeline of what we need to do, where engagement is going to be important. So, you know, we'll definitely communicate that and make sure that everybody is rowing in the same direction.
anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Riccabon? All right, thank you, Colin, appreciate the update.
Thanks, Kyle, good presentation.
Very good presentation.
So do you have the agenda? There we go. So if there's no other new business, I believe, Tom, there's need for an executive session.
Yes, we do have one item for executive session that Darren will cover for us.
It looks like Tara is motioning to enter executive session.
No, I'm actually asking a question.
Yes.
I want to circle back to something I think that was covered in October in the GA updates that Darren had gone over concerning Braden Airport. So I don't know if Darren's here.
I'm here.
I can't see.
Yep, Darren's
I'm
here.
here.
So I just wanted to ask some questions about what's going on there with the flight school and something between, I think David De Silva is taking over, but Newman Salim is out, the Pro Flight Aero, is that correct?
I think that the question's probably, it's probably more appropriate for the business committee, and just in the interest of
I'm sorry.
On agenda, I'd recommend that you either ask that of Darren offline or hold it for the next business committee.
That's fine. My bad.
Okay. No problem. So I'd ask for a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you. Take a signal from Colin when we're backing up.
We are back in public session.
Thank you. Judge, would you please briefly describe the purpose of executive session for the public?
Darren Better's presented information regarding potential development matters. There was no discussion or deliberation on any issues, and there was no voting, no decisions were made. It was purely an informational session.
Excellent. Okay. If there's no other business, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. And we can roll right into our ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Okay. Sylvette, would you please conduct a roll call?
Matt Turk,
Here.
John Hayes,
Here.
Paul Anthony,
Here.
Robert Burks.
Here.
Don Gottschall.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. And I want to welcome Robert and Paul to the ad hoc committee and to the board. I know we'll do a more formal introduction in our board meeting on Tuesday, but I'm glad you all are here. Just for purposes of explanation, the ad hoc committee was a committee that was created to monitor all activity related to our terminal connector project, because it is such a significant project and dominates conversation. We wanted to make sure that it had its own space and that it didn't detract from what was happening in our other committees. So, Sylvette, do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Excellent. I'd ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our November 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Dawn. Second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
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 All right, very good. We have one other action item. Ryan, I believe you're going to describe this for us.
Yep, thanks, Matt. So in here, what we really wanted to do, and we've talked about this with some previous approvals and updates, but really looking to get approval for the specific Life Air Systems acquisition through PA CoStars. So just a little bit of background. Really what this is a component of the air circulation and purification system that was designed as part of the project. Again, as a reminder, the overall project is looking to be LEED Gold certified, and this system is also meeting those LEED requirements for the project. Really a little bit about the Life Air system. It's actually headquartered and was founded in Allentown back in 2012. Really what it is, without getting too specific, is it's a system that removes 99.99% of airborne pathogens, and it does that with a traditional HEPA filter, but then what they refer to as a kill mechanism that basically renders any airborne pathogens, including coronavirus and other airborne issues, basically renders them non-infectious as it passes through the system in one pass, basically. So during the design, we incorporated having the system in the HVAC units. The 4 contractors that we have included some of the installation in their scope of work, but what we had done was pulled out the actual acquisition of the Life Air equipment for LNAA to procure through CoStars for getting the exact specifications that we wanted, as well as getting a reduced price through the cooperative purchasing, as we've done for a lot of other equipment here at the airport. So the cost of the equipment and some of the Life Air personnel to install with our contractors is around $425,875. Again, just what we have in there is in our cash flow that Todd went through earlier. The project itself still has a roughly 10% contingency, about the 2.5 million, and we'll get into some of the specifics of where that's tracking in the update here in a minute. But obviously wanted to keep that in place with where we are given the current status of construction. So really, again, it's within the checkpoint area. It's integral as part of the air exchanges that the engineers had designed, and really treating the design volume within the checkpoint where you get basically everyone coming through the airport going through that space. So again, for the health and safety of the passengers as well as the TSA personnel, it's something we wanted to include in the project from the early stages. So the other piece of why we're bringing this up now is we're at a critical stage in the schedule in order to procure and order the equipment. So back in early 2021, it was about an 8-week delivery time. Now it's up to 14 weeks. So we obviously want to get that moving. So once the project is at a critical stage to install the equipment, it's basically ready for us to install it. So really we're looking for approval from the committee and ultimately the board to acquire and install the equipment for $425,875 through the PA CoStars program, and you can see the contract number that they have through CoStars, which is one of the requirements that we follow.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Ryan related to this project?
Matt, I've got 2 questions.
Go for it.
Number 1, Ryan, what are the ongoing operating costs on a piece of hardware like this? Is it material or not anything we need to worry about?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's pretty material. They did have some additional monitoring that was originally included in the proposal that really didn't meet the needs of our facility. But from what we've heard, it's pretty minimal for what we would have accounted for with general maintenance on the space to begin with.
And I think to your point, John, because of that, it's also why it has the LEED certification that, again, very energy efficient.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. And then second question, given all the mutations we continue to see in terms of COVID, is this type of hardware upgradable if we run into a mutation that for whatever reason isn't?
That's actually a really good question, and I'll jump in, Ryan, if you want to, add anything. But I think one of the things that was very interesting is this was designed for a hospital setting, and they have a lot of documentation from Department of Homeland Security, actually, about the types of biological pathogens this thing can destroy on a single pass through the unit.
Okay.
And one of the hardest pathogens to kill is anthrax. And they have a number of technologies out there to try to do that. This unit's able to do it in a single pass, which is pretty remarkable and one of the big marketing features that they've used. So there's a host of pathogens. Coronavirus has been tested as well as a number of other airborne pathogens, and it's very effective. So in terms of needing to upgrade anything, I don't anticipate that to be the case, given that it's kind of a broad spectrum, actually destroying the DNA or RNA of that virus itself, and that's really what the key is in this unit.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, so John is moving to approve the acquisition and installation of the life air purification system. Do I have a second?
Yeah, this is Paul. I'll second it.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor of approving the acquisition and installation of this air purification system, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. You've got a HVAC system, Ryan.
Okay, thank you.
With no other action items, go ahead and walk us through our update.
Sure. Yeah, we'll walk through the update here where we are. Pretty good progress since our last meeting in November. So really kind of the summary, day 194 of the 730 contract days. Since our meeting actually in November, and we'll see some photos here in a minute, the switchgear installation, which was some of the new power requirements for the ultimate checkpoint, was installed, and actually we have completed the tunnel wall demolition, which as John alluded to with some of our updates we've been talking a little bit about. We're getting to the tail end of the micropiles. As you can see, 188 of 215 completed, which I'll talk a little bit about some of the status there and some challenges that we've run into. Again, continuing sinkhole mitigation, really working on some of the foundations for some of the elevator and escalator pits. And we're not working 6 days a week, but we are doing 10-hour days, 5 days a week with the contractors. The biggest things right now, which we'll talk about in a minute, is utilities within the tunnel are still being done at night. We did, if you came to the terminal, you saw or some of the notices, we did close the main terminal restrooms on the second floor, right outside the boardroom. Those will be closed for about 3 months as they start the renovations for those. And then working on putting the information out to our tenants and stakeholders for the traveling public is we'll have some intermittent coordinated closures of the bathrooms on the first floor around Bag Lane, really when the checkpoint is not open, to facilitate some of the improvements that are needed from the first floor to the second floor for the bathroom. And then the next month or two, we'll actually be working with properties and on our concessions regarding some of their temporary storage relocation as part of the project as well. Next slide. So just some look ahead here. Again, the final micropiles at this point, barring any weather issues, we're looking to complete those in February. Working on the concrete masonry unit block construction as part of the elevator pits, which we'll show in a minute. Again, working on some of the vertical circulation area, which is kind of the bottom part of the picture on the screen. And then again, pushing forward the bathroom renovations as well. Next slide. Here's kind of the overall view of the site as of, I think, yesterday morning. There's probably a little bit more snow on it now, but again, the crews are still out there doing some of the micropiles and some of the other work that can be done. Again, some other update photos. You can see basically going through the tunnel wall with some of the support foundations. So that demo component has been completed. Again, you can see some of the structural wall foundations and some of the elevator pits that are starting to be formed as well. Again, some of the micropiles that they're continuing in the vertical core area, continuing that. So I just want to touch on this a little bit. I apologize, I'm getting over a cold, so I might be coughing a little here. So one thing we wanted to touch upon is the micropile lengths and depths. So the image on the left is what was anticipated based on the design, and the core borings that were done. And the image on the right is based on the actual micropile lengths and depths that we've actually encountered in the field. So think of it, and what we talked before, but within this karst environment is the rock depths, are kind of like a wave in the area in terms of where we're putting those support foundations. So really during the design, we're assuming anywhere between 20 to 90 feet deep, with a 20% contingency in the quantity for the, for the contractor and the pricing. Really where we are now, and you'll see kind of on the right side of the screen, closer to where the vertical circulation core is, we've, some of the piles have actually gone down about 125 feet in length. So you can see type 1, which are shallower just based on the support requirements, have been 135% deeper than anticipated. And the type 2, which is really more in that vertical core area for the higher structural load, has been about 160% deeper. So the reason I guess we say all this is there is some anticipated cost impact due to the actual length, but as a reminder, that's what the contingency that we put in the project, that overall 10% was included, or a big part of that was because of that, we called it before unsuitable soils or unknowns given the karst geology in the area. So again, in terms of the support, we want to make sure everything is done correctly, and obviously got to put the micropiles where the rock is, and again, the depths are going to vary throughout the site, as you can see here. So more to come in terms of the cost impacts. Again, we see it being covered by the contingency, but wanted to make the committee aware. And again, these are some of the decisions that we've had from previous projects based on, somewhat that experience.
So we try to situate those critical areas over the deepest.
Yeah. It's the way, way these things work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Ryan, on this point with the micropiles, I'm going to go from memory here, and I'm going to get the project wrong, but we did a project about 4 years ago, and it might have been the cargo pads, where we ran into significantly more issues than we thought we were going to run into. So we increased, coming out of that, the number of test bores we would do in future projects because of the variability of the site. Do we need to reconsider that and consider doing even more testing up front, or are we comfortable with where we're at? Because this property is just all over the place in terms of sinkholes and
the problem
micropiles
is,
and everything.
And we've run into this. It's a great question.
And the dump we found with the stumps and everything else.
Yes, it's a great question. The challenge is the borings, you have to be right on, and you could Swiss cheese an area with borings and still miss some of the key points where your rock is and what's happening underneath. But, we've done some, ground penetrating radar, if you will. We've done some of that on the runway 624 project, if you recall the design work out there, to try to note rock pinnacles under the soil. We did a number of borings and tests and used actually dug up the old plans to determine sort of what they had run into at the time. And there's a certain area where we could do a lot of upfront cost on testing and spend a lot of money to try to understand what's happening, and only to kind of wonder if we're going to hit everything anyway.
Yeah.
So there's sort of that break even of how much money do we spend on invest in the testing.
Yep.
And that's always what we're trying to dial into. But you're right, we did run into that, and as part of the cargo project, and after that, when we did the runway and we did a few other projects, we really did a lot more.
I remember the conversations, yeah.
In the design phase to really understand that underground situation. And I know that was certainly a concern we all shared here in terms of making sure we had a solid foundation. It's one of the reasons we went to a micropile style foundation for the structure, is knowing the challenges under that soil. So it's you pay a little bit of a premium on the micropile style foundation, but we know that it's going to stand the test of time when it's there.
It's worth it, especially with the substructure we've got here. It's just
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest piece of ground. We know that.
That's why we got it.
That's why we got it.
100 years ago, yeah.
That's right. So, but yes, I think it's a great question. We'll continue to do, I think, what is certainly a step up from what historically had been done in terms of ground
Yeah, I'm comfortable
investigation.
doing that. Yeah, the question is whether we should do any more.
Go further
Yeah,
with
it's
it.
always that balance, you're right.
It is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yep, no, good questions. So again, just an update, really what phase one entails. I'm really, again, finishing the micropiles of vertical circulation and then working on some of the waterproofing of the existing tunnel as well. So again, we added this, I think, maybe a month or two ago, but really where we are as of the last committee meeting. So we added the bathrooms of what we're doing there. Again, micropile is about 87%. Total overall project status about 26%. So we'll continue to update this as we move forward. Again, phase two, once phase one is complete, is obviously working on more of the checkpoint area after the vertical circulation core has been commissioned. And again, working for the TSA equipment installation. And then really phase three is doing the renovations on the existing tunnel after the new checkpoint's been commissioned, and kind of working on that after, again, we get the checkpoint up and running. So some of the items here Colin actually talked about in his summary, but we did get awarded the additional $2 million in RACB. We did submit, excuse me, the formal application to combine both of those. So we're waiting on word on that from the state. And then we did submit for the capital budget request. Sorry about that. And you'll see the amendments in there and some of the costs where we are to date. Again, still tracking that accordingly and more to come based on the micropile discussion. So I believe that's all I had, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Ryan? All right. Thank you, Ryan. These are, I can tell, or I think earlier on in the life of this ad hoc committee, it was a little quieter, but it's going to get more exciting as we move along here. So definitely appreciate these updates. If there's no other business for the committee, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, sir. We'll see everybody on Tuesday.
9 a.m.
Right, an early meeting, 9 a.m. on Tuesday.
Yeah, I won't be there, but we'll see a bunch of you at the Economic Outlook. I won't be at the board meeting. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so that's why the board meeting is at 9, because of the economic outlook.
That's right.
Okay, I probably will not be able to be there either at the board meeting because I have an early class to teach at 9:30. But I could try to be there at 9, I guess, online as I'm walking out the door.
Okay.
So online.
That might help with a quorum. You'll have to check with Savette.
Yeah, that'll be important. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.